2022, I got a strange job offer on LinkedIn. A man named Daniel emailed me to set up an interview on Zoom. But during the interview, he answered questions meant for someone else named Mark. This was my first red flag. Later, Mark emailed me saying I was hired. They rushed to send W-9 forms and contracts. They promised to send me a check to buy job materials. This sounded fishy, but they used lots of big words that seemed legit. The $3,500 check was given to me right away. That boosted my confidence. The supplier, Sarah, texted me to pay for A smaller amount was allocated to the cost of equipment. I made 2 payments. The first was $600 paid to someone through Zelle. The second was $1,300 via Venmo to a stranger. Although I didn't know these people personally, I thought all this was part of a regular process. I did not see any red flags at that time because the money was in my account. I was told the money had to be sent to a third party for projects. They informed me I would be paid back. I would not have sent $1,300 if I knew the funds were not real. This happened on July 4, 2023. The money was new and still under review, so I paid out of my own pocket. I thought the new funds would cover my expenses. I got a call from the bank saying the check was fake. They didn't even hold it first. My account was left with a negative balance of thousands of dollars. I was told to stop communicating with the vendors and report this matter to police. That day I lost $3,500. I had sent all my cash. I was out of money, my savings were gone, and my heart was broken. Daniel sent me a message asking for payment for the equipment that was ready to be shipped. I had no response from him or Sarah. After that, I filed complaints with the agencies. Still, everything else was later on expectations on me. And also, my family. During this time I was employed full-time bite. Coming in was less. First failures of this time are coming on me. Yet I couldn't get the job offer. I wanted to be true. I am feeling terrible for my family, as I let them down. I had to take leave from the work as I just some job off, causing me anxiety and depression in there. The situation it came to me. I have thought about calling 988 for help, as I am embarrassed. I have lost. There is no let-up. Instead, it is pressing down heavily on me. I know how it feels like to be in the same boat with somebody. Yet, this is the worst part. I want to suffer alone. Now, I do not talk to anybody because they are going to point out my stupidity by being conned. I have reported the fraud, but the agencies that I contacted were useless. They told me off when they just said there wasn't any help for me. I could just fend for myself, that was it. Eventually, I changed my view. Now I try to cope with what happened. I checked back with the police. They had no new news. The officer told me to talk to the Attorney General's office as well. I had already done that. I also sought help from my bank. They said since I approved the payments on Venmo and Zelle, they could not assist. They told me that there is a law which doesn't protect those who authorize scam payments. I felt hopeless. Worst of all, the accounts that the scammers used on Skype, Venmo, and Zelle are still active. These culprits are still preying on others, while I am stuck with the consequences. It is frustrating that the systems meant to safeguard people seem helpless. There is evidence, yet it is not enough. It seems like the scammers are working in plain view without fear of being caught. The police officer said that the scam might have come from another country, which made me feel even more defeated. I recognize that the police handle higher priorities. However, I expected them to investigate this matter more thoroughly. Technically, I approved the payments I made, but had I known I was dealing with con artists, I wouldn't have sent the money. The bank app misled me by showing the check as available. I was not meant to go to the bank, but I went there thinking I had made a mistake. If only I had known about my lack of funds, I would have waited and contacted the bank first. However, I still ended up spending $2,000. It was a painful lesson learned. Now I am much more cautious about online jobs. I have found a part-time job to rebuild what I lost, but that day still haunts me. I can't help but think about it almost every day. Having been cheated once before, this was a humiliating experience for me. I will always remember the wisdom learned through that loss. Scammers easily trick people through simple online methods. The whole thing began suddenly. It happened late one night after my wife went to bed. I was just lying there when I started to worry a lot. I went to the living room and then my office before trying to sleep again. I sat down looking at the ceiling. hoping my mind would quiet down. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door that startled me again. It wasn't very loud, just the softest tap, but it rang in my ears. I thought I imagined it in my stressed mind, yet it felt so scary. Finally, I went back to my room and tucked myself in bed but couldn't find sleep. In the early hours, as I sipped a cup of coffee, I noticed an envelope attached firmly to my door. I felt frightened and uneasy, because this was something unusual for my area. Immediately, I ripped it off and dialed my investigator as he instructed me. I must avoid any further handling of the envelope since it could be needed for forensic analysis later on. The investigators examined the envelope, turning out to be that did not produce any fingerprints or DNA, but there was just a single word in it. Having the word printed in the same uniform way sent chills down my spine. I therefore became paranoid as a result of my thoughts about the mailbox, that it was possible for someone else to watch me through my devices. Weeks went by without any suspect being grabbed from the case, and even today, I doubt whether by any means a suspect will materialize. As I narrate this story, I am not happy about it, but well to alert various individuals regarding how easy it is to be trapped when making use of the online services. Has anyone ever remembered how numerous fearsome tales concerning deep web used to be spread out in the media? Almost every week, a fresh story would pop up. I saw a tale about people who went too far into the hidden web. They were in danger for talking about it. Back then, I was in my last year of school. Such tales had me hooked. I wasn't one of the cool kids. My few pals were the odd ones, the outcasts. This was how I first heard about the deep web. One friend described it as a secret place of the web where you could do anything secretly. This grabbed my attention. My friends used the deep web for drugs. I was interested in more. I wanted to know if the stories were true. The ones about odd forums and hiring killers. I did not plan to do such things, I was just curious. It was a window into the hidden world. At that time, life was a bore. I got up in the morning and went to school. The classes were dull. I would go home, play games, do homework and sleep again. Day after day was the same. I began to ask myself, do other people feel like this? Is anyone tired of this loop? I took a while to set out on the deep web. I was very curious, but I could not ignore the dangers. I had heard stories of hackers taking your info or creepy people tracking you down. The thought of someone ruining my life made me avoid the dark web for a long time. But one day, I was really bored and needed something new. The first week was a letdown. All I saw were drug sales and government leaks. I wanted something more thrilling than that. It wasn't going to excite someone like me who is not into politics or drugs. I was ready to give up, but the urge to keep searching wouldn't let me stop. Was the dark web real or just a myth? There was indeed a deep, dark tunnel on the internet. Just as I was about to quit, I found something that changed all this. At first, it seemed like a dead link, a completely black page without titles or pictures. I nearly clicked away when suddenly a chat window popped up from admin. They typed, "Congrats, you found the worst place on the internet." I was stunned. I didn't feel afraid, but rather confused. My response was just one word: cool. What else could I say? But what I really wanted was, show me your worst. Let me see if it's true. Before I could gather my thoughts, they told me to enter. I froze. My mind flooded with horror stories about hackers ruining lives and stalkers finding victims over the internet. But this was it, the raw side of the internet that I had been searching for. I hovered over the keys for a long moment, then typed, yeah. It felt like a dare I couldn't back out from. After I hit enter, there was no chat box anymore. Instead, there was a grainy black and white video feed. Another chat box opened up. There were about 5 usernames in it. They made creepy posts. The video showed an empty, dirty room. There was a wooden chair in the middle. For a long time, nothing happened. Then the door opened. A man came in blindfolded. He wore only black underwear. He was dazed at first. A woman dressed entirely in black followed him. She had a mask covering her face. She moved with frozen precision. As soon as she appeared, the messages of the chat were filled with excitement. My stomach turned over, and I thought of closing the window. Man drugged in chair, blank gaze beyond his eyes. Snaking wave of drew into my firm grip. Both tight senses told me to close and hands in. I could not. I show all was step into this. or call the cops, the woman against the knife, glinting light on, his blood streaming. Oh, it seemed like ask the arm, she nodded, considered. On I panicked, squeamish, scrambling, feeling the very mind and heart-pounding cursor, rest exit, button impulse. Whilst the chat suggestions, notion slice arm followed, ring out commands, watch, was torturing fun like observing some gory horror. Movie no horror, unlike artists' drawing. The word weather took place, however basis, thrilling novel shock, horrifying about dream sequence, that besides twists, were nowhere near extremes, crafting conveys which skillfully takes adapts, medium interpreted surprising in through breathless winds unforeseen those the kind's genuine horror engaged. The weapon was yanked from the man's arm as blood flowed out. He flinched a little and groaned, even so he was really under the influence of the drugs to feel pain. At first I was sickened by the scene, but later I became okay, and instead of being frightened or disgusted, I slowly started to feel other emotions. At some point, I was in an awful state with blood all around the place, and I noticed that the man was lying on the ground not breathing. Others in the chat said they had been through much of this show. Relaxation came over me soon. I began to find some fun about it, but none of them were actually admiring a small upstairs live show. Maybe laughing, things like that was out of the question. After another dull school day, nothing at all happened. Seemed like I texted the chat. Then the man got disposed of in a few minutes by the woman whom they all saluted. At this particular time, jokes praising her friends on their next performance showed online how she messed them up completely. After that, she was off. I wrote the event details down with my hands shaking, not from fear but joy. I had never felt more alive than when I received the invitation to be part of something greater than my mundane life. Being part of a dark forces network that decides a human's last moments thrilled me in a way I couldn't define. So yes, you can say, I love the deep web. The 5th of July, 2016. A messy blonde guy in his 20s exudes odd yet fascinating energy. Today is the day, he exclaims excitedly. We're testing Kevin's new spider bot on the dark web. For months, Kevin worked on this project, and he has just over a week to make it perfect for his thesis. Kevin, the guy off camera, whispers something that sounds insane. The blonde guy, Brian, reassures the audience. Kevin's nervous, but believe me, the guy is a genius. While Kevin tweaks his laptop, Brian addresses the camera. Web crawlers do not generally function on the dark web due to forms, passwords, or other similar stuff, but Kevin's machine learning bot can solve all these problems. I don't know how. I just know it works. That's all I'm here for. Brian glances to the side. That's right, Kev. Now that Brian can operate the device, we are ready to explore Kevin's computer again. The worm that almost got torn apart by Kevin's bulldog is enormous. If what we discover is accurate, things are set to change drastically. I will see you tomorrow at around noon for the check-in. Brian is back with a rough look on his face and dark circles under his eyes. His hair is a bit wild, but his energy is still intact. Sorry for the delay. We faced some challenges, but we are back somewhat. The bot firstly cataloged several sites, but it stopped abruptly as it behaved as though it had indexed the entire dark web, which is not possible. Kevin has been manually pointing it to new sites, which work perfectly. However, it gave up in auto mode when we switched it back on. Brian chuckles, sounding a bit tired. It's not a total fail, though. Kevin found something strange. Even though Kevin dismissed it, we found a color previously unseen. It sounds bizarre, but it's difficult to put it to words. Kevin suspects the screen problem. As Brian's camera pans to the side, he brings it back again. The robot has been enabled again. If it functions tomorrow, we shall go deeper into the exploration. I'm kinda going nuts here, muttered Kevin. He paced back and forth, disheveled in an old hoodie. This line of code is gibberish to me. Brian, do you grasp what it conveys? There was a languid shrug from Brian as he fiddled with his laptop. Man, I don't even get its essence. It seemed like he was kidding. Let's take it slow. First we make a drug market, then an anime forum, also a shady counterfeit shop, and finally a porn dungeon. Quite the combination, don't you think? He pointed to the screen as if he had unveiled an enigmatic mystery. Spider believes all dark web is just one big site. Isn't that ludicrous? Kevin, with a blank expression, replied, "I'll find out. They say dark web is part of human psyche. It's as bizarre as it gets." Brian couldn't resist talking. Imagine if a drug dealer, an anime nerd, a fraudster, and an adult star walked into a bar together. Rolling his eyes, Kevin remarked, "Please, Brian, stop." Brian continued anyway, and the bartender asks why they are there together. The dealer says, "We've all got secrets." Kevin groaned. Even the adult star has secrets. Brian grinned widely, as if an idea had just struck him. "No way." Oops. Their computer screen cursor moved on its own. "What in the world are you doing?" exclaimed Kevin. "Shut it down." Desperate Brian pressed the power button. He felt a million people's strength, but it just wouldn't work. "Take out the battery," shouted Brian again with more urgency. Some people do not understand the meaning of human innovation and creativity. Thus, there is a reason for such a wrong way of doing things in life that humanity believes in. Techno-garble is the worst reinterpretation. It shows that people see themselves as the masters of nature. This is wrong. We cannot control nature. We must learn from it. People often turn to technology to fix their problems. Sometimes they trust robots too much. When we feel weak and powerless, we start to depend more on robots. At such times, we open ourselves to being vulnerable. Many people can show environmental awareness, as they want a peaceful world. Students have now changed how they travel to have a better future. The world youth want to work together to be heard. The usage of technology allows them to pass information fast and be informed. When the timer stopped, there was silence. After, a dog barked loudly. Kevin whispered angrily at Brian to give back the computer. Before Brian could answer, there was loud knocking. The dog barked again more loudly. Following, the knocking intensified with a deep sound, and Brian and Kevin puzzled on each other, trembling. They both whispered at the same time about it. Another knock was heard. Kevin whispered, "It is your fault," Brian replied carelessly. Then, he stood up and went to the door. The camera revealed only his waist and shaky hands. He called out, asking who was there. Brian is close to the door. He peeks through the peephole. Suddenly, the door bursts open, sending him flying back. Wood flies everywhere. Screams fill the air. A gray hand appears, reaching for him. But Brian acts quickly. He distracts the hand and escapes its grasp. He crashes away from the door. The broken pieces are scattered everywhere. The screen fades to black. Now it is the 12th of July, 2016. A new video starts. Brian looks different. His face is pale and blotchy. He has less hair. His eyes dart around nervously. He sits at a small table in a dark room. A shadowy figure looms in the corner, standing still. Its hands are folded. Brian coughs. He attempts to speak, saying, "Hi everyone. This will be my last stream for a while." His voice shakes. He glances at the figure, then back to the camera. Kevin is okay, just a bit weird. He looks towards the figure again as if he wants an answer, but there is none. The camera shakes slightly, and you can clearly see the gray stitched skin. Brian fidgets, saying that the spider is their own production. They wanted to find similar people only. He whispers that it was made to warn you. He grabbed the edge of the table and shook his hands. Then he lunged forward and grabbed the camera closer to him and said frantically that you must close your browser and shut down your computer right now. The stitched figure calmly steps closer, and then Brian's voice falters. It takes only 15 minutes for it to find you once you connect. As the footsteps grow louder, the stitched hand reaches out, grabbing Brian and dragging him off screen. "Don't do this, Kevin," Brian yells, his voice rising in panic. "How long has your browser been open? Turn it off." The camera tilts down with his view of the figure's face, which looms much closer now. The eyes of the figure are human, but something in them is unnatural. Stitches pull the jawline skin tight against the face. For a moment, it looks like a terrifying being has come alive. Cloth without seams, cutting black show timer ticks final seconds. Junior year, I liked tech stuff. One afternoon, I found out about the dark web. At first, it seemed harmless and just mere curiosity. But in reality, it resulted in pop-ups about virus. I was frightened. Shutting down the Tor browser program had gone beyond. That night had another experience. Webcam light was on and I noticed other lightings on the laptop. I feared for safety and put tape over webcam. I tried to forget but couldn't find other ways to disable camera, so I reset laptop to original state by installing a fresh operating system. After I fixed my computer, I felt I was safe and got the webcam light turned off. A few days later, I got a text from a stranger. I opened it and was horrified to see photos of myself from my laptop's camera. One took me just after cutting my hair. It was clear I hadn't taken these pictures myself. Someone was watching me through my webcam. I put tape over the camera and panicked. Could they hear me? Were they logging my passwords? I felt so scared and helpless. After hours of freaking out, I did something crazy. I dumped water all over my laptop and pretended it was an accident, so my parents would help buy me a new one. For 6 months, I didn't think about it, but then I got another text. They had pictures from my new laptop, some taken when I was on it last week. How could they have done this? I'm frightened and don't know if I'll ever be safe again. In my spare time, I read up on cybersecurity. A few years back, I joined some tech people and we mapped out the entire web, including dark web onion sites. As a newbie, you can easily search for this info on Google. On some good days, we could potentially find about and track 10,000 servers, but more than half went offline. The operative ones revealed unimaginable stuff, like hacker forums and places where illegal weapons or drugs could be accessed on the dark web. There was an exceptionally disturbing site that I happened across. At first sight, the site appeared to be a simple medical blog where a patient shared their case. Well, to cut to the chase, shouldn't we put it out as it is? That is, this experiment had adequate justification as indicated by the presentation of results through comprehensive justification and error-free procedures. Its findings fit into various psychological theories. But one thing which I can't erase from memory is the thoroughly illustrated profile boxes remained in my mind. Women being pregnant cannot be made victims of sick ideas from psychopaths, as it is seen by the very low ratio of cases of such abuse, with the research findings being statistically, there were actually fewer murders than those occurring in the very first few days of the experiment commenced in her research. Thus, she faced obstacles that led to her fail. While going through some new gamers whining about being busted for cheating, the oddest thing happened where someone put the blame on super strong drugs like WTF. My mind started wandering thinking, if I could just discuss every topic including transhumanism or collective unconsciousness with anybody. I have to admit that I found it entirely boring talking with some of them for hours, only for them not to own their mistakes nor change the subject matter. It made me nauseous because of how this willfulness was oblivious concerning its psychological aspects. Many of my friends told me really nasty things associated with deep web, hence made a move from theory into practice. I went ahead and installed as well as configured the Tor browser just 1 week prior to embarking on an online adventure. Analysis looks like students of evolution, but not overall. The concept of simulation is central to science and can be confusing. We may think of something as negative in order to understand some good things reams. People who do trans-species experiments are being written about in newspapers. There have been arguments on how much of what is known is true or false. The writer borrowed a piece of research from a friend who is a brain scientist about the Haitian zombie case study. At first, it was hard to believe that scientists treated victims in such a way, but it was sad. They had to use anything they could get for proof, plus try finding out whether the events were real or otherwise. People boasted about it. They were happy that they managed to do such things. My stomach twisted. The first idea I had was to close my laptop and walk away. However, there was this sick part of me that wanted to see how low some people can go. I said I would click one last link, but that turned out to be a mistake. The page opened up, and I saw a title in curly pink letters saying peace and love. This title was not matching with what I had just watched. I was curious. Then I browsed through what appeared to be an image album along with an empty chat room. I opened among the images. The initial image showed a dreadfully skinny pregnant woman crying. Her eyes looked empty, and she seemed afraid. Her face showed she was malnourished and terrified. I moved to another picture and felt nauseous. The same woman sat at a chair, but this time she was lifeless. Her tummy was torn apart, having blood everywhere. In her arms, there was a baby, torn and bleeding. On the wall behind her were written words, peace, which I assumed had been done with theirs. I couldn't explain why I continued viewing all those photos. They were worse and worse. There were pictures of a body decomposing, a baby. Still held it, the last picture was just a pile of rotting flesh and bones. I felt sick. A message came up. "Hi Zach, did you like the pictures? Do you want to see more? Do you want peace, my stomach?" Hurt, how did they know my name? I didn't know what to say, so I just stared at the screen. Then another message came. It said, "Don't be scared, Zach. I know all about you. I want to help. I can show you peace." My hands shook as I typed. "How do you know my name?" There was no wait, they replied. "I see you now. Maybe close your window. It's not safe." I looked at the window behind me. The light was on my webcam. They were watching me. I unplugged it then. The screen went dark. My heart raced and my breathing was fast. My laptop was left without cover for at least a couple of days. I tried to be careful online so as not to be discovered. When I checked my email today, I had received a lot of messages from an anonymous person. The messages were similar. They read, "I want to save you." There were also my photos taken recently. This worries me. Someone is stalking me. I called the police, but they dismissed my concern. Now I am being cautious as I think of my fellow freshman who introduced me to the dark web. We would use Tor to access some onion sites together. One day, we came across a hitman offer which we thought was an FBI trap. There were also some underground forums with shocking content, especially on striking topics. As daring teenagers, this kind of thing seemed new and cool to us, although it had horrific images in them. Now, I just need to figure out my next steps after seeing all those strange emails. Discussions that were horrendous, which made your stomach turn. As we attempted to avoid them, they were the kinds of things that could ruin one's night. We came across a marketplace that had everything, even fake things like passports and untraceable weapons, though we did not buy anything. The strangest thing was the ads for boys and girls at a singular site where those looking for absurd things posted requests. It was dark and unbelievable, exactly as the stories of those nasty Craigslist murders. It got me thinking how many of those posters matched their stories or committed their heinous fantasies. This thought remains etched in my brain, how close we might have been into something really dangerous. It all started roughly 5 weeks ago. My family and I were planning to go abroad. My Galaxy S7 Edge had problems, and so I turned it off, but the screen was frozen at boot logo. The distributor's computer indicated that the system was hitched. Thus, reinstating of software was needed. We had 3 hours left before we left, so I borrowed my sister's old iPhone C for the trip. All was okay. I transferred my SIM card as I did not want to incur charges overseas. A few days into the journey, bad weather hit us. We remained at home, bored, as I had nothing. It was revealed first that the dark web has its own degree of secrecy and international connections. I learned this from my friends who had access to them. They would tell stories of their journeys through the dark part of the internet, which seemed to include unbelievable things such as jobs that I was too terrified of to perform myself. When I asked them that they used to resume, they gave names such as Tor, and a mobile app that was stripped the old iPhone had been reset many times away from there. I decided to aid my curiosity by downloading the Onion browser and began to browse the dark web. I first ventured out into the surface net by going through links on a wiki page. There were links to shady markets selling weapons to fake ID. I was in an area of the wiki having too little information about it at all. It had no meaning, but as once I wanted to force myself in, I found myself in the contents of the site, not knowing too well what it was. Thus, immediately a box appeared with a message saying, "Hello, new user, welcome." I then typed back, "Okay, thanks for welcoming me." Immediately after, another message came in and said, "Everybody loves us. Starting very soon. Would you like to join in?" My curiosity got the better of me, so I wrote back asking what type of show it was. Against my better judgment, I somehow found it quite hard to bear reading the lengthy terms and conditions on my screen. One line made me stop. "If you leave before the show ends, your IP will be blocked permanently, and you will not obtain access to this site again." I found myself feeling unwell, they had. Ignoring my doubts, I clicked on agree, and then followed the directions to get to the show. The link directed me to a secret part of the site, which had a blank live feed on the page's core. Above it was a countdown number. As the countdown went, I could see that it was 1 minute. Below there was a chat box. Messages began to flock in, just simple greetings such as, "Hi everyone," or "How are you?" No one spoke about what we were going to watch. My pulse quickened as the last seconds clicked down and the timer reached 0. The show started. A man wearing a mask appeared on the screen. He leaned forward and began to talk. "Hello everyone, welcome to the show. If this is your first time, do not worry, we're glad to have you here. For those coming back, thanks for returning tonight. We have planned something truly special." The man disappeared from the frame and a harsh light flickered on. My heart sank as I was zoomed into a poor girl tied to a chair. For a split second there, I knew. The host asked the chat what they wanted to see happened. Users wrote horrible things. I wanted to leave but couldn't look away. I felt sick. They were having fun at the girl's expense. It made me so mad. I typed, "You're crazy, you'll pay for this." I didn't mean to say it. I was cut off. The screen went blank. A user messaged me, "If you report us, your family is done." My heart sank. I typed back, "I won't. Leave me alone." I closed and uninstalled the app. I was scared. What had I gotten into? I tried to push it out of my mind when I got home. Normal life resumed. I sold my iPhone. I wiped it clean. A man bought it for his child. He appeared kind. He said he would go to the city. I was glad to get rid of the phone. At last, I could breathe. That phone was gone a week later. I saw the news. A family was found killed in a hotel they had been missing for some days. Police sought leads. I was shocked. It hit me hard. The death was due to my phone, which someone tracked used to kill the family. My error caused their deaths. Now guilt eats me if you read this. Don't use the dark web. Its dangers are immense. I laughed at dark web tales till a friend shared she saw disturbing things there. I believed her. She could not erase some images from her mind. They haunted her. I believed she was exaggerating. My curiosity led me to download the tour and explore the hidden wiki. It looked sketchy and boring. Links to shady meetups, jobs, and drugs were evident. A black market Craigslist came to my mind. While about to leave, I noticed a link called The Night Watch. I clicked on it to see what it was about. A black page showed 3 videos of households. The first was a family, the second a couple with a pregnancy glow, and the last a woman and her dog. A distorted voice introduced the lives of the 3 households. His name was Kevin Kennedy. He lived in Austin with his wife. One day, a friend's family dropped off their 3.5-year-old son, Henry. Henry had a poor home life and thought of Kevin and his wife as his parents. So, they took him out for lunch and movies, trying to make him happier. Kevin took Henry to work. Henry was amazed there and forgot to eat. Then one day, Kevin got dirty at work and left. The first part of the video was just the family recording themselves doing ordinary things. It was like they didn't have real moments, but just lived through a video. I was like some peeping Tom seeing secret things. Mom was called Hulk Hog, and Dad was Half Man in my mind. The Fights family had been recorded on the next tape I watched. That one was not thrilling. I felt uneasy, but forced myself to watch on. A happy couple was making a baby room. They flipped through baby books and laughed at rocking chairs. It was sweet, but I realized I had spied on them. They were unaware of their actions. I watched a final video with a woman and a dog in a messy apartment. This video was different, as it showed a tired woman scrolling on her phone and staring blankly at the television. However, the dog played happily with her. With the household in these videos, I was terrified as the voice asked, "Which life will you choose?" I felt as though I was being used as a plaything. The thought stopped me in my tracks. I discovered men behind the last video. They showed no feelings. Their presence was terrifying, but they decided on my family's fate. The voice made me uneasy as I heard, "You need to make a choice now." Terrified, it preyed upon my emotions. The images streamed across again. It was just a joke game. However, the voice told me that I would choose for my family's passing. It gave me a cold vibe. When it stated Anna, my body chilled. My breath was hard as I asked, "How do you know my name?" The voice laughed as they told me, "We know everything." I held a bleak choice amidst the video images. I don't care about the family story. I remember the day. People still remember my scribbles. I helped them with the cave chores. I was the computer that found answers. Everyone was surprised, and I felt proud. I was their savior, but I was also a cold-hearted person. I only thought in clear ways. I saw myself as better than the dog, the young ones, and the old lady. They were just there to see the light of the moon. I chose them because I had some feelings. There was a naked lion in my background. I was charged with the duty to help. I went right up to them because they had money and were willing to do it. The command they gave to choose was not well known as yet, even by the people involved. The effort required was very advanced. The third person's involvement was just a sequence of events that happened coincidentally and had no bearing on the rightness of it all. The baby's room was dark when they crept through the door. One of them stood beside the crib and waited forever. He knew it was time to turn against his friends. Inside the room, there were lots of toys scattered on the floor and pictures made with many bright colors, drawn by hand on the walls. The couple were lying quietly in bed with soft light from somewhere. Time stood still. I watched as the first man raised his machete above the couple's heads. Then he brought it down with a blood-curdling scream. My stomach churned and my throat felt full as I reflected on those primal roars that's awfully horrible. The second man was worse, though. He thrust his sword between the pink bunks swiftly while still asleep, making me scream. My hand pulled the PC's plug, plunging my room into darkness, and all was silent. I sat there. Waking up at night, I watched the computer. Paralyzed. The black image was illuminated in green on the display. All these breaths were like gasps for air, and the heart pounded loudly. Trembling hands belied my feelings, and I pressed my face to forget everything seen, but this memory of screaming echoed eternally. Blood burned into my eyes as hours went by impatiently. I prayed that it was all a cruel trick for hackers' laughter. After some days, no one could sustain the torment I faced that night. Tension amongst nerves wore me down. The email from the night watchman came with dread. It had but one simple message. Jenna thanked you for saving her. We enjoyed. Hope you play again. There was a picture she walked her dog through the park while not knowing anything. I listened to, closed the laptop, having sworn off the deep web forever. No more curiosity, only a weight of regret. On several nights, I had been roaming the dark corners of the internet. That was my bad habit, to find exciting links. But those bad ideas led to shocking sights. I have seen lots at the PC. There are awful images of twisted forms. The stories are horrible. You might consider that they are made up. The dark side of humanity is there. It is disgusting, but it attracts some folks. It is as if finding out more about monsters that we hide in plain view. At one time, I had a can of beer. I mixed fear with curiosity. My friend gave me a rubber girl doll for Christmas. It looked at me with a terrorist face. We drank Red Bull, and then I took a helicopter model as well. Margot and I shared beers last Sunday. Their angles were straight. Rawhide was found. I went quite deep. What goes on in Socrates' sepulcher? Pass the gas and choke. I looked for delicate designs. I did not think of forwarding each in my previous article. Anyway, somebody adorned my article either in coffee cups, which were given common to Claire beans. Java 2, though, still you would happen to add. Likes to use higher definitions than this notification. Places, however, happening. Number of broadband on that line and not available. Back indeed their Webster. There were complicated computer scripts made to create hidden paths on the internet. Many hackers today can try this trick, but they still use old ways like getting passwords. Their secret Wi-Fi methods allow some people to use your router and view your files. I was having fun online until I saw a strange mark on the left side. It did not fit with the rest of the page. So I moved my mouse over it to see more details, and suddenly it showed many letters and numbers together with the word enter in Russian. It looked like a secret entrance to another area of the web. Back then I was not doing much. It was a slow day. After a while's wait, the page started showing up very slowly. There was nothing on the screen at first, which got me anxious. Finally, it opened black with red flowing text from one side to another. It had the title of the blog and linked to many articles without saying which one was which, all piled into a jumble. I got curious and clicked blindly. The story described different things on yet another website, but most wouldn't connect. Only one link worked, but I had to keep guessing. Boys, I really don't believe this at all. That face has been rebuilt so that it resembles that of a woman. It made my stomach turning completely. I have seen some gruesome and ghastly videos online, however, that just went an extra step. Let me just state that I don't possess a strong stomach when it comes to gore like that. How can anyone derive pleasure from such a grotesque thing? The dark web continues to terrify me. regarding the reality of human beings, aside from me. After I had hurled out of disgust and closed my eyes, only rage consumed me that there are people who could. The sight was funny, yet the complexity of it all has made it even more ridiculous for all who landed there. I acknowledge that they played me well, yet this still leaves the feeling which there's something more behind the sight. Why would somebody create an elaborate page with cryptic messages just for a joke? There must be something concealed. This ended up being real. Just as I did before, I highlighted some of the areas on the page in hopes of revealing further information. I got it. At the bottom was a string of numbers visible faintly. 4,916, 27,121, 38,105, 12, 13. My first thought was, could it probably be another address? But it lacks a familiar B onion at its ending. This did not appear like that of a web link at all, but rather, what else could it possibly mean? None of these links on the page work apart from that nasty one, and I certainly cannot go back there again. Leaning back, I simply stared at this string of numbers, feeling frustrated. Could they be used as passwords? For what purpose? I grabbed my phone and attempted to search the sequence, however, ended up with nothing, a whole lot about math tutorials. Not helpful. Sighing, I put my phone down and got back to I was bored with the website links. Then, I saw a number pattern. There were 12 links total. I thought maybe the numbers were telling which link to click: 4, 9, 11, etc. I tried clicking in that order, but got nothing. No secret stuff popped up. I was determined to find a clue in the numbers again. Then it occurred to me that the links have limited characters. I remembered some union sites coded their characters. It could mean some digits. Thus, I checked the 4th from link 1, the 9th from link 2, and so on. At last, I did get a new sequence that looked like an onion address. I was so nervous as I typed that in the browser. The screen blinked, and then a dark website appeared. The black page was titled, Happy Fun Time. This was not good. I thought I'd find something nice, yet it was the opposite. Images flashed upon me such horrid things. One of a man's head crushed by a truck tire with blood and brains splattered everywhere. On the street, they were a small crowd close to the crime scene. Some looked horrified, while others just stared into space. The next image was bleaker. They showed the severed heads of several victims with their bodies laid out. Each head was fitted in the mouth of its respective corpse. Being a foreigner, I found that very disgusting and painful to watch, as I could not bear to pose for the next video. The short video with poor lighting was playing blasting loud rock music, and it showed a woman alone in a dark corridor at night. With the cameraman sneaked in dark shadows, there were 2 men coming for Alice behind her as well. There was a flash of light from the camera as they got close indeed. It was too brief to be seen from. The 2 guys were fast and hard in an instant. She screamed, but I could not hear her because the laughter was so disturbing in that. Its whole part was like a game by the man behind the camera. I stopped watching it because I felt terrified, her dragged into the dark alley where he continued to laugh. Any normal person would have reached that point, closed the tab, and walked away, but I was drawn back and scrolling down the next post. Photos showed 5-year-old girl with her parents, then later on she was pictured with the dog. The first set saw nothing wrong again, until later, realizing what had been posted. One scene at park while she was swinging seemed to be taken through the bushes or fence not visible. My horror began when there followed pictures showing her in a dark house that had lights on only because of camera flash. Next were fathers and mothers dead on their bed, then finally it was the terrible last sequence. She now had no longer a smiling face as such, but was badly injured there by dark bags around eyes, swollen eyelids, crying only. It got worse, with every picture showing this girl being tortured. My eyes were locked onto the screen, but I wanted to look away. The comments beneath the pictures disgusted me even more. People were mixing praises in English and Russian. They admired the photographer's work and congratulated them. This only made my insides turn to mush. My heart went out to that girl who had her pictures taken without her consent. Most of the time, I could ignore the awful stuff that gets posted online. But this time, it hit close to home and stirred up some painful memories from my own past. Is that why I always hang around this nasty part of the internet? I don't know. What I do know is that I felt angry inside. Without thinking, I typed furiously, "Congratulations! You guys are disgusting examples of humans. The police are coming. Enjoy your freedom while it lasts. Better yet, kill yourselves. As soon as I pressed enter, my comment appeared among all those nasty ones like the lone voice of anger. It took seconds for replies to come flowing in. Most mocked me, calling me weak for caring about this girl and laughing at my anger. The argument heated up. Insults were thrown around back and forth. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a user commented. I recognized the account right away. It was the one that had originally uploaded those awful images. The first message they sent was a random string of numbers and dots. At first, I did not understand that it was my own IP address that was being referred to. I was then informed of my full name, physical address, and social security number. I panicked and wondered how they had managed to track me down. I suddenly recalled that I had not been using Tails to hide my IP address, which made it easy for them to find me. I attempted to type a response, but my hands were trembling so much. After a final comment, I closed my computer and paused for a while to catch my breath. I could not believe it. Why would anyone go through this struggle to trace me? Write threats online that you do not mean. But I instead called the non-emergency police line to report all that had happened. They took note of the site address I'd given them, but I thought there was nothing that they could do about it. I finally had to call my insurance company to keep an eye on my social security number. I started taking whiskey to forget all that had happened, but then on Friday, a black van was seen parked outside my apartment. One time, I parked in my neighborhood. I did not think much about it. Strangers at times can be found there. I had almost gotten rid of dark web folks' encounters from my mind. I entered and dropped my keys on the table. The computer was turned on for boring scrolling later. Suddenly, I heard a sound from outside. It seemed that someone was climbing over the fence. My heart skipped as I lived alone without pets. The noise was coming from my yard. I decided not to go out. Then I heard unmistakable shattering glass from downstairs. My heart was paralyzed. Heavy footsteps sounded in the house. The echo seemed nearer as they drew much closer to me. I wanted to hide, but my body could not move. There was nothing on me, and I was not armed too. My thoughts were not quite taking in this. The heavy boots thumped up the stairs. My heart throbbed greatly just outside my bedroom door. The intruder entered slowly through the creaking door. The man wore an all-black outfit. His face was covered with a plain mask of smooth white porcelain. The expression of it was lifelike. A pistol with a suppressor was in his hand. He walked slowly around the room, surveying it. I held my breath but trembled like a child locked up in the closet. However, he skipped checking the closet. Cloak was the perfect disguise. I felt relieved to leave the closet, though it was a peculiar place to look. Intruder was fixated on the inflatable doll these were offering. He was tiptoeing, belly crawling, gun concealed, approached the figure that was sitting at the table. Intruder was entirely engrossed. I crept silently out of the closet behind him. I sprung forth, pounced with the precision of a lynx. My hand was fastened his neck instantly. He was agitated. His rage saw him flail and slap in vain. With the other hand, I ripped his gun. By the way, I pushed him face down on the floor. With a flick of knife, I pressed on nerve in his arm, causing his shriek to cut across the air like pure fear overtook him. He lost grip on the gun. Like a split second, I put my knee on shoulder blades. Of the guy bent his arms, twisting, thus every bit of hurt there came to him. I pressed lightly my knife down the neck. As I closed myself to him, whispered madly, "Duh, you should be late in regards to that victim?" Before he answered, I twisted his wrist against body with all my powerful knees in his hands. There was cracking sound of bones followed by horror howling, which thrilled me, thus excitement. I knew how to kill a person, having engaged in torture in an apartment kitchen. I felt no fear, like a rat losing its head. I killed a man, thus I was divine. Their eyes showed fear, but I derived satisfaction more fulfilling than killing a rat. I had an extravagant feast of meat plus chips. I began as a snake, enticing girls into sin, now lifted up high like sun god. There was temptation that I gave it, while performing some charm, then thus I became addicted. Once it was used interest, the phone only hunter. There was joy in making a tool to kill humans. We were made for destruction. Emotions clouded reason. I at least knew how I made a woman see the world in a different way. After that, I became quite cruel. I started doing things like taking out eyes. I enjoyed it. The first person I did such things to, I used a knife that controlled the mind. In the beginning, this made me slowly become hard. In the end, the one I was after was even friendlier than the enemy to me. She told me the truth, that is why I fell in love with her. I was mad with rage. I revealed everything. Instead of concealing the truth, I had to give the whole picture of the past. Monsters suffer fates that are monstrous. When they beg me, it excites my blood. I enjoy the taste of flesh. They know me by another name. My friends call me Sig Sepsis, a name I cannot bear. Others in the dark web whisper, I do not hunt monsters. I become one with my friends. To you hiding in the dark part of the net, I watch you all. When mistakes are made, bodies are left. Those who know, I find them. A very horrid story follows next I have to tell. During the years between 2012 and 2013, when I was a young high school boy aged 15, I did not own a car. My group was of girls. After class, we strolled home. We did not mind, as we only got caught doing wrong things. Downtown was weird, but there were murals. No places or stores which would allow cheap coffee, but we just checked in on some of them while they were closed at night. We wandered quiet streets when we were on our way back. At midnight, I went to the park with my friends. I thought it would be boring, but when we changed clothes in the parking lot, I felt like a superhero. We rode our bikes to McDonald's. Then we swung on the swings where I tied my friend tight. She flew out of the swing and fell. We laughed a lot. I wasn't boring. I was fun and adventurous. During the practice, I was feeling left out, as the boys turned their attention to another girl, while they laughed with one another, including my friends. I was in the other corner with my boyfriend, who was aware of my situation and did not speak much. I had no chance to show them all that I could do better. Then thus, I avoided everything, including talking to them. They were ignorant and rude. In our midst then, we noticed a group of kids. They were clustered together in a shady corner of the ground, doing something strange against the wall. But when we passed nearby them, they stopped immediately, as if nothing was going on, and pretended being bored and just staring at us. We sat quietly behind the blue lamp, hidden from view. It took almost an hour for the kids to leave. When they finally did, we walked down the alley. Shadows stretched as the sun set. Turning the corner, a scary silence fell over the city. My chest tightened. I examined the wall for clues. Tessa nudged me. What were they doing? She whispered, fear in her eyes. I spotted something odd. A tiny USB port set into the wall, hidden among the bricks. It looked deliberate, as if it was waiting to be discovered. Everyone began to crowd around, eyes wide with interest and fear. The secret port sent shivers down my spine. Why was it here? Tessa took a step back, scared. Wrong questions popped into my mind. I nervously laughed and joked it was probably a prank to lighten the mood, but I didn't truly believe that. Yet my curiosity won. Should we have a look at what was inside? Tessa hesitated. Maybe we shouldn't mess with it. I rolled my eyes. It's probably nothing. The others exchanged uneasy looks. I took out an adapter cable. Looking back, I feel like an idiot. Sarah asked, "Is this a good idea?" I ignored her warnings. I was so excited. I plugged the USB into my phone, hands shaking. It was just so thrilling. The phone buzzed and lit up. It was downloading. Maybe it was a diary or random memes? Sadly, it showed us nothing. But hindsight is a jerk, right? The file downloaded in a flash. My phone rebooted. The screen was blank. Then it turned back on just like that. Hadn't found the file. We laughed nervously. I felt relieved. It was nothing. As we walked away, the spookiness faded back, and we were back to normal. I checked my phone. The apps had no new things. I thought it was a small glitch. At night, we went home. I was lonely on the way home. The phone looked okay, so no worries. The next days were quiet. Then things felt wrong. Sometimes some apps would just open or crash. Friends' texts were sent to strangers. They thought I was winding up drunk. Banking apps displayed distorted lettering. It made me angry, but I did nothing. I didn't tell anyone because I feared wisecracks. I thought viruses could go away by themselves. Deep down, I sensed some could invade my privacy. This was scary, and Ocean's blamed for not being careful online. Little did credit cards, emails, and personal info get put at risk. I was young, stupid, and I did not care. I got a lot of weird texts from friends on phones and computers. We joked about them. Once my laptop froze. I pressed reset to restart. When I saw the login screen, there were strange words. They said, "All your secrets belong to us." I was terrified. What secrets did they mean? My mood changed. I thought of these funny words my laptop mocked. Thus I slammed the lid shut, gripped in panic. I had told myself this was nothing, just one glitch, but it only got worse. My father faced the same problem. Mom complained about internet problems, and smart devices also behaved crazily. TVs switched on and off at will. Speakers played rap songs out of nowhere. The house felt like a ghost train, not a home. At first, parents thought it was bad connections or technical issues, but I knew better. I had charged my phone at a spooky USB port found in an alley. The end was near. One night, I was drowsy when suddenly an alarming sound jerked me from sleep and pierced my body. It was not possible to even sleep on the bed edge. However, there was pulsing energy in my heart. From those stairs, I hit the bed edge, almost falling down. The other part was my parents plus the two kids who had appeared menacing. My father asked, "What on earth is happening?" He ran it first and hit to check the locks. After checking, he was asking me if I had gone. He also looked out through the window, yet all that could be seen was the blinding red light with an alarm sound. My father's panic-stricken state freaked me with the attempt to disable the alarm. The other thing about it was that he punched the keypad code, but this alarm could not go off. They tried again and again in vain. Frustration was besetting him, yet he did nothing, just stood aghast. Morning came without warning. The alarm was silenced, and there was sudden stillness which made ringing sounds in the ears. We looked at each with knowledge of what next before the intercom came alive. There came a disconcerting voice through the intercom. It was calm, severe, as kind of tone that caused goosebumps. "Hello," they said here. "Do you hear us?" Dad at once turned pale as he grabbed intercom. He yelled, "Who the hell is there? What do you want?" "Hi," the voice went unnervingly. "We just want to tell you that your secrets now belong to us." This struck me like a blow to the belly. All that talking made me want to weep. I told my parents about the man's screams in the alley and how my phone got there through a USB. They couldn't believe what I told them. Anger began to build up, but we did not have time for such matters. Now we were involved in an emergency. That night, we all slept on the ground in the main room. We didn't want to be left alone with that sound continuing inside our heads. We bracketed the couch with blankets. Next morning, my parents began gathering assistance. They had called the cops, security experts, and even some IT men from my dad's job. One after another, they listened to my story. They appeared to have taken me seriously, as though I was a teenager claiming there were ghosts in the USB ports. They smashed the whole system apart to look for evidence and scrutinized those related to nearby computers, laptops and gaming consoles, etc. Replacement of new equipment was heavy. Phones, laptops, and routers were all lost. My parents secured every account. Passwords became so complex that we needed to write them down. VPNs were installed, though I had no idea what they were. All this cost tons of money. Though cumbersome, we had no choice but to feel secure. As for the USB, investigators came back to remove it from the wall. This was the dumbest of actions. It was actually just a pile of weird litter, namely bad poems and old essays. I got a virus when I used a USB stick. It was scary. It felt like it targeted me. The internet can be dangerous. Sometimes bad things happen to people just by chance. We were lucky. We didn't lose any security, just time and money. Others had worse stories. The lesson learned was to avoid unknown things. In junior high, my friend Sarah and I had trouble with algebra. We had to stay after school for help. The teachers were busy on phones. We used to help Lucas more. One day, we typed random letters in search. Weird pictures popped up. It was in this vast thing called internet that I first found some connection. The digital landscape. My fingers would just slide across the smooth keys of the keyboard. I learned to operate the computer very early in school. Thus, I set it up to work as I wanted. This trust was abused, for the password I had used was in the hands of a virus. With only 65 characters in its length, some hackers managed to penetrate. I was not still able to regain it back, however. I had come to comprehend that the spirit of the computing device went beyond the visible signs only. I programmed my computer all alone, and with no one knew about it. My friends whom we shared these secrets were from among my uncles, who used to carry me along with them during their coups where it was easier for me to learn the secrets. My elder brother was also a genius. Throughout my life, I had liked the gaming of computers, and this drove me to seek knowledge on matters 3D art. It was too much fun, yet I couldn't quite express it to anyone else, since I was so much caught up in its details. I don't think much of it at first. There are a lot of strange people on the internet, and sometimes odd stuff pops up. However, these old black and white photographs that showed deformed faces were different. It looked like mugshots. One time, Lucas saved his homework on the school computer network and somehow found a folder with files belonging to previous students or teachers. He laughed at how someone must have forgotten to log out, but I found those files really creepy. When he opened a certain file, he froze. He beckoned me over and whispered, "You have to see this." As he opened it, I felt a knot in my stomach. I asked him what it was, and he said it was a picture of a kid tied to a chair in some dark classroom. I leaned in closer, but the picture was very tiny and blurry. All I could make out was the kid was wearing a red shirt just like Lucas's, but the way the lighting was strange, like only one weak bulb was on. The room was almost empty except for the chair in the middle with the tied-up kid who looked really small. That emptiness made me shiver. I couldn't help wondering who could have taken such a thing. This photo was of my school. It was old and faded. There are many other things in our files here. What other secrets are there? A boy was in this photo. I do not know who he was. It gives me the creeps. Someone saved that picture. There is a quiet feeling here, where people even forget to lock the doors sometimes. I have grown up in this neighborhood. Its old feeling is like the American past. Not everyone here is a friend. We do not act like on television. We all have unspoken links. Crime had not been my worry where I live. But then around the world there was this virus, and new people began to arrive here. It was plainly clear the newcomers were not locals. The same was happening in other places. All fled from a big uproar that they had that time. An old rusty car parked in front of the baker's house was bothering me. The grungy wheels and smudged windows screamed trouble. At first I thought the car belonged to a friend of their teenage kids. But as I kept staring at it, I became more uneasy. In our neighborhood, such a car did not fit in. I often worked from home and had some spare time. I decided to watch that car. I stayed by the window for a few hours, hoping to see somebody getting in or out. But nobody was inside the car. It was still. I called out to my wife, Katie. "Look at that car outside." I said. She came over and squinted at the street. "What do you want me to look at?" "That car." "Doesn't it seem strange?" I asked her. "Maybe it's just some friends visiting the baker's kids," she said, sounding doubtful. "Yeah, that could be. But deep down inside, I wasn't so sure about that. We had seen the car so often, we just decided to watch for a bit. It might vanish hours or days just to come back without any driver. Initially, I thought it was pandemic's paranoia, but later on, other cars came. Cops hardly came here for small issues like missing dogs. I thought maybe they were looking for wild teenagers sneaking in houses, but day after day, when patrols returned, they worried me. Then, an officer took notes at the baker's house. That was too close. I gawked at the neighbor's animated gestures. My wife asked what was happening. "Not quite sure," I said. "It looked serious." A little later on, they called off large gatherings. So the postman walked into my living room last summer in a uniform. He dropped the mail on my desk with a smile as he made some small talk. I felt grateful that he wasn't delivering bills. The eye mentioned how it was having to stay at home every day about doing something. He agreed and pointed out how he loved talking with people while dropping off their mail. If only there was someone else they could see, we chatted more often, but I wasn't sure we would be able to change much. Life just has to go on staying safe. I felt a bit at ease with my overreaction towards the COVID situation. We had witnessed a lot of hostility amongst neighbors during lockdown. The day resumed its normal course after the cop left. The dinner was ready, and we relaxed to watch Netflix, but the internet was too slow. We rebooted the router, but it was still not working. So I called my friends and the service provider, but no one had an idea of what was going on. After much frustration, we gave up and sat on the couch. The feeling of something wrong kept creeping in, and I kept looking out of the window. I could see a dark, unmarked cruiser parked down the street. I motioned to Katie, who shared my concern. I knew that there was something bigger happening, so I would find out tomorrow. Eventually, we had long discussion on the odd things that had happened recently, which the car and the internet problem seemed to link. The vibes from outsiders unnerved me oddly, though somehow. The cash was a factor in it all. The idea of squatters and all that lockdown talk was odd, but this felt another level of strangeness somehow. The strange thing that night, this feeling of uneasiness just stuck in my mind and I couldn't shake it off. Like a needle it pierced. Every sound outside was so loud all of a sudden. Every shadow that fell on the walls seemed massive. "I'll talk to our neighbors tomorrow," I said to Katie while we lay in bed. "I might even call the police if need be." She gave me a slight nod while staring at the dark window. "All right, just don't do anything stupid." "Okay, no stupid stuff I'll do," I muttered. Yet at that moment, I could tell I was already too involved in this matter, and falling asleep proved hard. When it came about, my dreams were muddled up with faceless figures as well as strange voices. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual due to some mix of resolution and dread, then dressed up slowly while taking coffee, thereby looking through the window. The street looked so quiet as well as eerily normal. This only fueled me more, hence by the time came for going out, I crossed over like walking on some trap instead. Slowly, I walked to Baker House's front door, which seemed like a gateway into another world. My neighbor Greg is very worried. "Your house is just near mine. He is the one that lives next to me. Yesterday I saw the police car parked outside his house. Greg usually wears neat clothes. Today he was in a neat gas shirt and looking good. I asked him about the cops. He said that there had been problems of learning. There had also been other strange things happening. The police wanted to know about the internet as well. They said the matter is a security one. Greg did not know much. As for his old car, it had a few small issues he told me about. But the main thing was that it was fixed at the time with a few components. Some people might have thought it was strange. He got worried first, but later was able to check out the car. I kept the truth close. They told him it was a good idea. The next day, police took his gear without saying why. We parted. My brain was racing. The meeting raised more questions than it answered. I thought my net was back on. The problem persisted, though. There were no sites on the net. It's connected but not transmitting. I spent an hour trying everything I knew. Virus checkers, rebooting, cables. Nothing worked. In a last effort, I switched everything off. After some time, I switched it back on. I renamed the net and changed the code. Looking out, I saw the rusty car again. Stomach in knots. 2 homes were netless. Cops patrolling the block non-stop. The shabby car was lurking near, like from a conspiracy theory. While tweaking the router, I grabbed my phone. At least data still worked. I searched Reddit for answers. Many people had experienced. I posted on the web about strange outages of the internet that were connected to hackers or areas that were compromised. My wife and I didn't click on dubious links, nor did we visit suspicious sites. Still, I had an uneasy feeling that we were caught up in some big issue. Then came a knock on the front door. A loud knock at that. I caught my breath. Who could it be? Were the police here to take my equipment like they did to Greg? I recalled his tale about the way they showed up unexpectedly. He told me how they seized his modem. A ripple of fear went through me hearing about it. But now it was me facing the same treatment. I stood frozen, staring at the door, expecting it to open itself. Finally, I got the guts to open it, and just saw a boy leaving who looked out of place. He had hair that was wet and matted. His shirt was torn and dirty as if it was taken from the trash. He seemed as if he had just emerged from a nightmare. Perhaps he had thought I wasn't at home to receive him and thus opted not to knock. In this case, he wasn't as dumb as I had been. He surely was not an officer. So I said to the boy, "Hold on a second." My voice was weak, yet it was strong enough to make him turn and look at me. I asked him, "What do you want?" He stopped and turned slowly and glared at me. There was sadness in his eyes as he desperately looked for something I couldn't offer him. His faint smile vanished quickly when he said, "What's wrong with you?" This was terrifying. I answered, "Why do you do that?" My little voice trembled a bit while saying it. "Why do you do that?" he said again loudly now, as if it were a threat. He then went wild, shouting at me. The chaos was palpable. There was a lot of shouting and it was hard to comprehend. The rage in the guy was visible. I was the target of his fury. I just stood there frozen, with a racing heart. The man was a total stranger to me. He was saying things I could not understand. I tried to respond, but he was flailing his arms about. Finally, he stopped and walked away whispering something to himself. I was left bewildered and trying to process what had just occurred. First, a car parked weirdly next to me, and then a cop intrusion later. Was this man furious at me? There was a lot happening at once, and I felt lost in it. When I looked outside, I could still see the car parked without a care in the world, hugely uninvited. Reading and rereading these memories made no sense. It was scary enough to want to run away and be safe, but how could I go away now? Then came fear. There always was fear. I needed to make a decision. All I could do was kneel before whatever was happening, or better, face this unknown person with some courage. I didn't know how I should go about this day. I felt trapped by it all. My wife got home. I told her everything quickly. The car, the cops, the man at the door. She listened intently, her face getting worried. "We need to involve the police," she said firmly. "This isn't something we can manage alone." The police came the next day and fit the pieces together. They had been tracking a suspect for weeks. The man at my door was Kevin, or maybe Keith. He was one of the many who lost everything during co-living. He lived in his car. Kevin was a computer whiz who caused trouble in the Midwest. He started small by breaking into coffee shop, gas station, and library Wi-Fi. He learned how to bypass firewalls to break into private networks. Then, things got darker. His love for the internet and conspiracy theories got out of hand. Drugs and paranoia turned Kevin into a ghost online. He drove around using hacked networks to access disturbing things on the dark web. The police didn't share much, but whatever it was bad. They even involved their computers to crack down on Kevin's actions. Why he parked on our street, I can't imagine. It was his base, I guess. The car was full of wires and devices. The police thought it was a command, and they watched it. Kevin's car was a real fortification. There were power packs doing the tricks apart from a fan in the boot to keep the secret. The back seat was cut out to make room in the boot. When they arrested him, it was like a movie scene. The police were quite shocked by what they saw inside his car. Only a genius could create that structure. Sadly, Kevin's mind was bright but misused. He was caught and taken away. I heard he got out after a short time. His car disappeared. It's sad to think he wasted his life. However, a wake-up call might make him change his path. Now, with the pandemic and the internet, folks have more chances to fall apart. My life has been mostly stuck. At 3, my uncle taught me how to use a computer. By 10, I tricked my family by pretending to be someone else on Yahoo Messenger. I had no friends because I was bullied due to my autism. I didn't understand why they hated me. My father said to fight back, but that was hard for me. I would try to punch back but failed. My strength was only in cyberspace. At 16, everyone was on Facebook and Twitter. Jason was a typical jock. He looked good and had a hot girlfriend, but he was dumb and hated smart people. That's where I came in, with my words and skills. Jason bullied me, so I created a fake account on Facebook to catch him. I made it look real. After a week, I got all the evidence I needed. My friend Jason got a message on Facebook that said his account was hacked. I pretended to be a fake tech support and sent him an email about it. Then, Jason was told to download a security update. This let me get into his computer and see everything he did. I watched him a lot. I created a false dating profile posing as his secret lover. Thanks to what I saw, I knew exactly what to say to make it look real. Also, I filled his computer with embarrassing images. When their parents found out, they had to move. Over those 4 years, I felt bad for hurting people online. However, one day I got a weird message on Facebook from Liam Sutter, a total stranger. We talked about games, but then he asked me about life and death games, which made me laugh. Until now, I thought I was safe on the internet. I didn't realize that someone was following me. I thought my best friend Liam was playing along, but I knew he was keeping my secret. I told him what I did on the internet. I switched from talking casually to being serious. I told him I stole my parents' credit cards to buy games. Suddenly, he asked, "Where did you get all these games?" I panicked. Only my parents could know. I was caught. I sent a message on Facebook saying I played at friends' houses. I shouldn't have joked like that. Was my parents' knowledge about my games not a concern? But I had fun. I watched people fight other heroes. I succeeded in obtaining all items to be used in the game. The guy on my phone was horrible. He laughed a dark laugh that made me scared. I turned on record, hoping to know him. He told me I was one of too many secrets I had. It was like I had no way to hide. He told me to win. I had to play his game. Mom's life depended on it. My heart was pounding. I felt like he was controlling me. But pretending to be calm, I said we will play a game. He laughed. Most people would be so frightened by now. He must be watching me. But how? The camera was out. He was spying through the phone. So I searched for how to track him, how to find hidden cameras. Fake Jake came on the line. The voice was right away. A Jake symphony, think smart. He therefore told me I could never track him. I could never see him. The game was on. I think the phone was a big bird. I feared to receive it that I would not lose. I would be a meatless one with the Rangers in camp. Jake. I was to explain rules to the him. He told me he was shifting rules, and he laughed loudly. The ruler was a strong emotion. King was the god of men. Those moments show us that such feelings are not human. I was sad and weak at first. I became fierce. My expression changed. Age had thickened me. Villains were in the troop. The wise light waited for the signal. Silence answered the alarm. It was a ghost. I told the truth. I believe we will be like one another. This man will not be one. I will consider him stubborn. Let me be the most stubborn one. I have faith. My heart stopped at this thought. How everything done had been heard. Horror and disbelief were on my face. I had stolen. I researched. The binoculars failed to see me. They targeted my face. I will have none type of rights. The road roared. The cat was out. The knife spilled blood. The world was chaos. The greatest desire was revenge. Something dragged me deep in time. I can become a beast on the cycle of Atlantis. I, a man already, Callahan, broke the right. I left a trail. My thoughts seemed to be that they were right. The gates of lamenting tongues opened again. After picturing my end for long, I survived. I took action instantly without pausing to think. The plan was to tell why there are such reactions that we see such mind-manipulating behaviors. I disclosed that it was the wannabe hero, and right away there arose a cacophony echoing in the hall. As they began sorting papers and appointing partners, the scraping chairs plus noise made it to be undoubtedly getting out of control within the psyche world of the psychology. Silent and secretive, the shadowy figure confirmed every detail beforehand. He had the gist even then as we seated together for lengthy periods on the lonely at the cafe of the Festival Menace Arts. I was just a geek whom bullies adored. I could have informed her about autism via telecommunication, arranged by a lunatic. For some seconds I swallowed my annoyance and let out a laughter saying, "Yes, that was I, an odd bod." James giggled back on the other end, I assumed. Therefore I resumed saying, "Do you recall Brock Leland, whom you were dating at school?" Her tone softened, but with apprehension. "Yes, I recall him. He used drugs, isn't it? I often feel sorry for parting with him." I stood there astonished. I did not expect her to feel remorseful. Why? My mouth slipped out. It took time for her to answer. Thus I paid attention to my spying gadgets on the frequency James was using. Quite slow, however. At last she spoke. "Brock was such an employer, not just upon myself, but also upon others like you. He was terrible. I know what he did to you, Jake." I shouted. "I went out with him longer than I ought to have, but when I caught sight of those sending messages, infidelity, I said, this is it. Leaving him has made me oblivious of how it damaged him." Again there was silence following, which I seemed to hear her weeping quietly, so I kept quiet too, wanting her utter such. And I needed to gather my thoughts quietly. "You know what?" Finally, in a soft voice, I remarked, "That was on no account you. Brock made his choices alone. There was no pressure on your part to remain with him. It was my error which ruined him. Liz, what I must ask is, how did you recognize me?" She made a cold sneer. "Are you serious, Jake? Did you assume I didn't comprehend that Brock was fake?" Two scenes came in my mind. One was a memory with the past. The other was a hopeful future. They were joined by good timing. It all came together in a terrible drama. I saw Cohen walking puzzled. I had messed it up. Jim caught me from the Matrix, and so did others. Hours passed patiently as she told us her idea. Life was hard for years, he said. Rationality was supposed to drive history. Jacob had no clue. The plot was the classic hero plot. The grandfather cultured, the grandmother flower factory worker. The place was a real novel. The man was both stupid and noble. I liked him. Encountering darkness, I ran. Andrew hit me as a heap of lightning. It was easy to answer. I was upset at first, but soon I accepted. Then I hit him first and ran too. I had him in no time for killing preparations. But someone jumped in front yelling his law. Jacob, the police, came out. He was free to go after a while. The second ship was God's God. No limits, only creation, possible data. Nothingness became clear, too friendly, maximum life happiness was close by for the first time. I had forgotten myself for years. Group dynamics, this was my first time partaking. Young males full of energy ideas were great. Couples prepared much of what I had said. They were positive, radiating joy. Not only couples had this feeling, all singles had fun together. Engaging activities brought with them, such as hope, despair, and all. My father passed away. I think she should know why. Don't you agree, Jake? I know you dislike falsehoods. I nearly forgot. Her name is Sarah. Use this in your conversation with her. I had no opportunity to react before Skype called again, giving the name. Guilt-instilling recollections seized me, but suddenly her voice came through, quavering with fright. Hello? Who's there? Please help me. My body almost froze. She sounded young and frightened. Besides, in her voice was an echo, as if she were enclosed somewhere. Danny's voice broke in, mockingly teasing me. You'd better say something at once. She is waiting, and who knows what might happen if you fail to time out. His laughter reverberated within me menacingly. I swallowed hard. Sarah, are you all right? What's happening? I don't know, she stammered. It's terribly dark. I can't feel my legs. Her breath began to quicken. Where am I? Who are you? Please help me. A surge of panic ran through me, but I needed to keep her calm. Take a deep breath, Sarah. Look around and tell me what you see, okay? After some hesitation, she replied, There's a camera in front of me. I'm sitting on a chair. I can't move my legs. Deacon, it's overly dark. My blood ran cold. James had her under observation. Spinning back around to my phone, I said, James, what have you done with Sarah? He smoothly replied, You've got 10 minutes, Danny. Find them both. My heart raced. There wasn't time for disputes. I had to do something. Sarah, do you have a phone? We can work out together. My iPhone was on. I could slightly hear how hard she was trying to get away from her captors. Yes, I told you I had my iPhone charged. Should I call the police? James's voice rang in my mind. So, the police killed her. If you really loved her, Danny, you should find her yourself. I took a deep breath and said, Sarah, I am Detective Haynes. I am looking for you. I need your iCloud details to know where your phone is. I hated to do that, but it worked. I got into her iCloud account and quickly found her location. She was just a block away. I gasped, and as soon as I did that, I ordered for her rescue. That dude wolfed a monstrous laugh. I did not just need you to locate her. I need you to bring her to me now. No matter what the case is, Danny, don't forget you still have your mobile phone so that we can continue to communicate with each other. I quickly understood that it was a sick game he showed me. He wanted me to find her. Holding the kitchen knife, I hid it in a towel and ran out. The door wasn't tough to break. When I opened it, I was already past the cables and makeup tables. The light was too dim. There were no intercoms. It was just an empty, boring house. Was I right or was I right? I shouted, Sarah, banging on the door. There was no response. Then I became desperate. I looked around for something to bang open the door with. I saw some bricks. I took one of them and hit the hinges of the door. It took me about 5 hits. Each one shocked my arm badly, but eventually the rusty metal surrendered. Sarah. As I entered the quiet building, I couldn't look into all of the 20 rooms fast enough. I then heard a muffled cry. Sarah, I yelled. I rushed to her as fast as I could. She was tied up. I looked for James at a distance. A woman stood in the room. Sarah said there was another girl here with red hair. That was Liz. Suddenly, someone said, Hey, Jake. I froze. My heart sank. Was it really him? This fear alone can stifle me when I think of you knowing all my secrets. Then I saw Angela cry. She moved close to me and my heart froze again. "Angela, why are you doing this to me?" I couldn't help but cry out the name of the only person I've ever completely trusted. I feared her innocence. There had been some steel on my part. Why couldn't she introduce me to her family? This angered me at such a level that it sank deeper into my heart just by thinking. Right at that moment, everything I thought I knew about her, the parents, family, and society, suddenly made sense. This man was certainly not a good person. He had wronged me deeply. I couldn't be forgiven by Angela for all my life. I then told her I was behind what had led to the arrest of his father. I heard her whisper some crap as she started to cry really hard and blamed it on me again. Never have I ever had something such as her did when I told her the truth. The pain of having locked up the father had been what? I tried many things in a bid to forgive myself and let it go. I am so grateful for your advice about the contest. Your words inspire me so much. How are your desk tasks coming along? The butterfly games you spoke about are fun. I hope you can have a good time with your friends. Although I still feel very sad at times, I know that letting go will not be easy. It's late and I should get to bed. Thanks for your tips. Exercise yourself to the fullest in addition to the games. I know that some may sound childish, but while my here friends seem useless, you can really count guys through thick and thin. It is at times challenging to have good, close friends. Just all this waiting alone out here. There is none such people. A few in number know our secrets, but they are true friends, to be together like brothers and sisters when need be. Not that there are non-friends, but rather oppressing and torturing us. No matter how tight I held your hand, I knew it would not beat the pain I felt in my heart. But what more could it is that I very much wanted that terrible feeling for you, my good little friend. The face of our celestial Heavenly Father shone brightly for all to see, as he told me just how very thankful she was for such a good friend. But I am now beginning to have some pity, as is told of him. I have always been a scaredy cat. It is hard to know if it is better to think or not, so this makes me feel helpless and afraid. I fear his reaction, and possibly if he leaves. Still, I keep saying some kind words while in my head and heart, which is happy. Angela told me that it was not about being determined that made me give up my life. It was the truth of being a coward. But this time, I would lay down my life for her. Yes, first I could not perceive her suffering as it grew up within me to sympathize with her, and then apologized from the bottom of my heart. I went on by opening my heart to them about all it was a strange bond that existed between us. Suddenly, I was in the depth of such great joy knowing someone like me with a close heart. I just put aside a piece of paper, though no one could see it. You shall be my muse. In my mind's eye, I was reflecting over this belief that God alone is able as men who are in a category of their own. In fact, there must always exist as herds of men descending from one another. There are within the same species of a kind, while they have similarities of some of their features and differences. There exist just very little likenesses of my former lacking men on earth, and their very many forms of appearing and progeniting. I thus thought about how beautiful a butterfly might be discovering its beauty when it comes out of the cocoon that it was in. Once it emerged, resemblances as nothing else. So far do you see, in all probability, there is a boyfriend whom you can always have a good time with. Also, I do see that you do like to have fun by being with a merry fellow. So I will do all I can to help you belong to one of my loved ones who will make you happy. All the same, please come see us team just once by sinking to hear your sweet voice. And then Josie also be about studies. And then as well further you compete in melon the right way. Only my mother is who always does so to me, that she comes and prepares with my brother's lessons. So being in a few children forming one family is enough different peoples were there, as each one has got a particular significance throughout their own culture's world. In fact, I am now exceedingly tired of that sentence. This is very dumb. I will be over it. I asked her out. I did not care at all. In the dark, both Angela and I were arrested. Liz and Sarah helped clear me, but Angela was not so lucky. I went to every court hearing. She looked amazed to see me. I would visit her as much as I could. I brought her a new story or gift each time. We will leave this place when she gets out. My hacking days are over. I have to fight for Angela and us. My battle is not against bad guys or the system. It is for our future.